Lucy. Not Laura. Lucy. How's the same? Much the same as yesterday. It's not miraculously recovered overnight. Hopefully. Something's happening inside. Yeah. I'm sure there's someone in this building who can tell you exactly what's happening in there. Right, we'll get started. So, thank you for coming to this session. We're running it twice today. We ran it twice yesterday. I'm not going to steal their thunder, so I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Dan, Chloe, Callum, Tom, and Lucy are going to talk to you about adjusting to university life. Dan, would you like to start by introducing yourself?
How much do you want to know?
Well, just who you are, what you do.
Okay. I'm Dan. I grew up in Porthcawl in South Wales. I went to Oxford and I studied music there. I've since graduated, so I guess I'm more in a postgraduate role, but I did have all the joys of undergraduate life while I was at Oxford. Yeah, that's probably as much introduction you need, and the rest will come out as we're talking.
Yeah.
So I'm Chloe. I am from Treharris, which is near Merthyr Tydfil, sort of on a weird brink between RCT, Merthyr Tydfil and Caerphilly. I'm in my last year of doing a history degree at King's College London, and I don't really know what else to say.
That's fine. That's okay.
My name's Callum. I'm from Rhondda Valleys. I'm in Cardiff University. In my second year, studying neuroscience.
Hi, my name's Tom. I'm a second-year geography student at the University of Exeter. Currently on their Streatham campus in the city itself.
Okay. Do you want to take that one from?
Hello. Hi, I'm Lucy. Oh, yeah.
Hey.
I am a third-year economics and politics student, and yeah, I'm on the Streatham campus as well. And yeah, I broke my hand.
Right, that's a great introduction. So let's start with who can remember the questions. That's the test. What's question one? Don't worry. So, two things. Why did you decide to go into higher education, and why did you decide to come to, not this university, but that university?
A bit of an odd one for me. I went all the way through school until the age of 17, not believing that I was going to get GCSEs, let alone A-levels, or go to university. The tipping point for me was I was working alongside my school studies as an organist in my parish church, and my parish priest said to me, look, you're a smart boy, I think you should be considering applying to university, and namely Oxford. And I remember laughing in his face and saying, like, that's not possible. I don't have the capacity to get GCSEs, or in my head, what were astronomical GCSEs. So I managed to accrue those GCSEs and obviously then A-levels, but it was that introduction to the possibility of university, which is why I ended up studying at university. It never really crossed my mind before that point that someone like me should be going to university, let alone to a competitive university. So in the end, when it came to deciding which university I wanted to go to, it was very much guided by that conversation. And if it hadn't been for that individual saying to me, I think you should apply to Oxford, I wouldn't have considered it at all. So it's a bit of a mixed one, but it was very much external circumstances that led to me ending up at Oxford, and I was very happy there.
Great. Interesting phrase, isn't it? Someone like me, I think a lot of you might be asking yourself the same thing. And hopefully over these 2 days and carrying on with Seren, you can see other people who are like you and think, yeah, actually, it is doable. Great.
So it was kind of the opposite way for me. I'd had university in the back of my mind since like a very young age, because for me, there was no other path, really. I had no practical skills, completely unemployable. Like when I was 16, I applied for so many jobs, wasn't hired for any of them. So I was just very academic, and I knew that was where I should focus all of my energy. So I spoke earlier about why I went to King's, but I'll reiterate a few points. So I knew I wanted to go to a university that had a really good reputation. That was something that had been sort of drilled into me going through sixth form. So I did the usual thing where you like scour league tables and stuff, and King's kept cropping up sort of near the top, and I was interested in going to London, and London seemed to provide a lot of opportunities that sort of going to Warwick maybe might not have offered me because of the isolated campus.
Couldn't tell you about the ukulele scene in Warwick, but yeah.
So I didn't want to be a student 24/7. That completely disgusted me, that idea. I wanted to be able to walk out of campus and just be another person on the street and not just be a student all the time. So that's why I picked King's.
Mine was kind of building on from what Chloe said. I didn't really know what I was doing myself, so I just done A-levels because my friends were doing A-levels. But then when you get to university, you can't really go to university just because your friends are. So in the end, I picked to go and do neuroscience because I wanted to do research afterwards, and my uni was good for research because one, it was in Russell Group, and two, they offered me, they got this like summer internship thing that I can do, so I can actually train, like, so it will make me stand out when I get a job. I decided to come to this university, obviously, like I said, one, because it's a Russell Group, but two, because it's close to home where I can just nip back and get like my washing and my food shop done for me. And that actually saves me quite a lot of money. But two, like being in Cardiff is quite like a bit far away from valleys, so I've never bumped into anyone back home, so it's like best of both worlds, independence-wise.
So I chose to go to higher education basically because I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do in my life. I didn't have a career path that I was really stuck on, and I just thought, do you know what, another 3 years of kind of education and hopefully get the independence that I was really after at the age, I don't know if you guys feel it too, but kind of at the age of 17, 18, you really want to just get out of the house and start doing your own thing. And university seemed like a prime opportunity to do that, get as far away from home as possible, and or maybe it depends where university is, and go from there. So that was my logic. In terms of why I chose to go to Exeter University, I really liked the idea of going to a campus uni and kind of having an idea of kind of where everyone was, and just recognising people on a daily basis when you're walking around the university had a really nice kind of appeal to it. I also, my sister, she went to Exeter, and I went and visited her and kind of wandered around and sort of social life and stuff like that, and it really stuck in my head after that.
Yeah, so I studied politics and economics, and before I went to university, I'd never studied economics before, and I really wanted the opportunity to do that. I'd only done maths, and so it was going to university was the opportunity to study something new, and then kind of increase my learning on something I'd already kind of become passionate about over my A-levels. I chose Exeter in particular just because when I got there I really liked it. It was a really sunny day, and I went to a law lecture actually, and I sat in there thinking, I'm so bored, this is not for me. Not that saying law is bad in any way, and it just didn't click with me. But then I thought, I like it here though. So then I just found a student, and I just said, like, where would I find the politics department? And she was like, yeah, they've got talks on in there. So I like kind of slipped in at the back and listened to that, and I thought, yeah, this works for me. I went to lots of different universities, went on lots of open days, and I liked Exeter the best.
I think it's really interesting, isn't it? It's very much about what's right for you. The campus thing, I was part of what I liked about Warwick, but it was the open day that sealed it for me. Because you can look at brochures, you can look online, you can look at videos, you still only get it secondhand, but being there and seeing it, walking around, talking to students, talking to academics, that's the way to really decide. So.
I literally would say the best thing was speaking to a student.
Yeah.
Because they tell you for what it actually is, they don't lie to you. I mean, I don't get paid enough to lie to you, so I'll really tell you the honest truth, so.
Yeah. Are we ready for some questions from you? What would you like to know from these 5? Don't be shy, they'll answer anything.
Yeah, like we don't actually bite. We were in a position once.
There you go, nice and loud.
First few days, or like the first week, what was it like when you arrived there?
Like a culture shock. Because it's all made out, like you said this yesterday, it's like the first week is actually made out like it's going to be one giant party, and like it's always like that. But you've got actually quite a few things to do, and you've got to adjust to living on your own with people you've never met before. It wasn't as bad as what it was made out to be. Like some people have good experiences, some have bad, but it's all about getting to know you and like independence, I'd say.
Yeah, just to reiterate that, I think Freshers Week for me had been bigged up significantly. Everyone said it was like, it's just going to be the best week of your life. It really is. And I went there and I had an amazing time, but it was weird because you don't really know everyone yet, but you do so many activities with each other that you start bonding really quickly, and everyone's in the same boat and they want to get to know each other. But yeah, in terms of whether you like, your Freshers Week won't necessarily represent, and it highly likely will not represent your university experience. For me, my favourite kind of was a kind of informal freshers halfway through the first term. After 6 weeks, you got to know everyone, you'd worked out who your friends were, and you had a really fun kind of week where it was a reading week technically, where you go out quite a bit and socialise with them, have a really good time. And yeah, for me, it was definitely the first 2-3 days of adjusting didn't really represent my whole university experience. It took a while to kind of break in and get used to it and adjust to independent life.
Yeah, I'd agree. I remember sitting in my room and I literally rang my mum as she was like halfway on the motorway being like, I don't want to go out, I don't want to leave my room. And it was all fine, but it's really scary, but everyone is in the same boat. I know it's very cliche to say, but they literally are, and everyone does want to be your friend because they're having the same feelings you are.
So yeah, my experience is similar to Lucy's in that I just was terrified. So I'm not one who really enjoys the kind of stereotypical freshers activities. Like, I'm not a big drinker. I don't really enjoy clubs. And like at King's, it was like everyone's going to Ministry of Sound, and I'm like, I'm not going to Ministry of Sound. No. But like, so it was quite difficult in that first week, and I didn't really click with people I was living with, and I never did the whole time I lived there. But you find other avenues for making friends. So like after I got over that week and then my inductions started going to my seminars and my lectures, started joining societies, that's when I really sort of came into my own and started to find people who are interested in the things that I was interested in.
Thanks, Chloe.
Yeah, I think that's the key really, is you've got to get involved in things, and that's the best way to make friends in life, not just at university. And being part of something else, something that unites you, is what actually builds these relationships for you. I do remember the 10 minutes before the first session being one of the most terrifying experiences of my whole life. And I'd gone through the whole admissions process and the interviews and all this sort of thing that everyone says is terrifying. I mean, it didn't bear a resemblance to 10 minutes before I met my year group. And it came from really not fitting in school at all. I don't know if any of you relate to this, but being academically gifted in school just didn't, you never really fitted in. Well, I didn't anyway. And I can firmly say that for the first time in my whole life, I got to university and I made real friends, because suddenly I was in an environment where I was surrounded by people who were also very similar to me in lots of different ways, but also very different from me in different ways, but united by this sort of love of knowledge and this love of learning, and also just thoroughly decent people. And it was a really nice moment, actually, those 10 minutes afterwards, because it's just not in anybody's interest to be difficult on that first day, because if you are, you'll end up with no friends. So, you know, you have a completely blank slate when you go to university, and you've got this option to reset everything and reset who you are if you want to. And that's one of the most rewarding things about going, I think.
Great. Any other questions straight away from the audience? Anything at all? Did you catch that? How did you adjust to different teaching styles, was it? Yeah. Callum.
Answer is I still haven't adjusted properly. I don't know, you have lectures, you have seminars, tutorials, and then I suppose teaching styles as well. There's also different like exam styles and things like that. It's a continuous like process. But I think it's just trial and error. You've just got to try some things, they work out, some things not so much, and you will find a way around it. I like talk to people on my course and my housemates, and everyone has a different way. So that's how I would find out how I would try something new, if you get what I mean.
So this is something I spoke about yesterday, and it was about sort of adjusting academically. When you go to university, you're going from being like the top of your year group to being in a group of people who are the top of their year group. And all of a sudden, you kind of the playing field is leveled out, and you're going in with a set of knowledge that is different to other people's set of knowledge. Your curriculum is different to their curriculum. I said this story yesterday twice about how I was sat in a seminar that was focused on like Tudor Britain, And I'd done all the reading, but I hadn't got anything from it. And I was just sat there while everyone was making all these like really insightful comments. And I was just like, how are you approaching this in a way that you're getting more from it than I am? And then I found out later on that they did, at GCSE, Tudor Britain. So they had this background understanding that I didn't have. But as the year progressed and as everything got a little bit more difficult, and the readings got a bit more difficult and away from like things that were on the curriculum, the playing field leveled out, and then all of a sudden I was the one being able to give answers in seminars. So I think that's an important thing to remember.
I think that's a good one for life, to be honest with you. If you feel intimidated by other people's knowledge, is at whatever point, you know what you know, they know what they know, and as you said, the level of field the field can level out, but it's also about being confident and happy with what you know. Yeah. Anybody else want to add to that in terms of learning styles, or as Callum said, in terms of the ways you're assessed as well and how they vary?
Yeah, for learning styles, I think the biggest shock for me was just the lack of pressure that the university puts on you to do your work. You suddenly go from an environment where teachers are drilling you to get stuff done, deadlines done, or you've got detentions and whatnot, and then you're going into a world where it's all on you and you do what you want when you want to do it. And it's a bit of a shock, especially in freshers, when there's so much going on, everything around you is changing, and you're meeting new people, and you're doing new activities and sports and stuff, to kind of remember you're still there to do a degree. So it kind of settles down after a while, and you just realise that you do it because you want to, because you love what you do. And after that, it becomes easier, and you get into a rhythm of doing work when and how best suits you, either like in plenty of time for a deadline, or maybe a bit of a midnight before job or stuff like that. It all sorts itself out, and you work it out yourself, to be honest.
I have to say I can't fully relate to that, because the Oxford teaching structure is so designed about one-to-one, one-to-two teaching. It means that you can't really get away with not doing work towards deadlines, and it's designed, the structure is designed to make sure that your welfare is being looked after as well, so that you don't reach a stage where a deadline's looming and you've not done any work. I mean, the tutor would know well in advance that you've not done the necessary work, basically. So, in a university where you have a high-level contact, it's designed to bring out the best in you, designed to mean you can cope with the stress, basically, of university life. And it can be stressful at times, but I mean, I never, ever had a situation where I felt I couldn't deal with it, because I had such strong support from my tutors that the possibility of something going wrong basically never, ever arose, because they were always 5 steps ahead of me in preventing it.
And that model is, as you said, it's pastoral as well as just teaching, isn't it? Yeah, so they get to know you really well on a one-to-one, one-to-two basis, and they look after you or look out for you. Yeah, Lucy.
Yeah, with learning style, I think going into a lecture and going into seminars, they're just very different to what you're used to. But I think you just have to take whatever works for you at school and try and apply that, and kind of a bit of trial and error, to be honest. So I know I learn best by like writing out things, just do. And so I just used that and continued that through university. Whatever works for you to work now, you've just got to try and use that and continue on. Like, you may be in a different environment, you may kind of be in a room this size having a lecture, so it is more on you to make sure you are engaged, but at the same time, it's not going to be that different from school. There'll still be similarities, so I wouldn't worry too much.
I also feel like there's a lot more group work involved. I don't know if you guys find that, but at A level, I just didn't have to do any group work at all, at all. But at university, you're put in groups, especially if you're doing presentations and things like that. And I know that in my seminar groups are quite big. So I'll have, rather than 10 people, we might have 20 people in our seminar groups. So we'll get assigned a lot of reading in history, but we'll divide it up amongst us. So rather than all of us tackling 500 pages, we'll sort of divide it up, and then everyone will share. So you're kind of learning from other people as well. So rather than your teacher sitting there talking at you and teaching you, you're actually learning from the people who you're studying alongside. And
even learning in terms of how they approach the reading and their learning styles as well, I suppose, not just learning from the part they've read.
Every uni's different, but my uni's got this real big push on collaborative learning at the moment. So outside of uni, we all go and revise and things like that together. We book rooms and whatever. And what I don't understand, I guarantee you someone else will. and like it's sort of tit for tat. Like you teach each other things because some people are better at some stuff than others. Like I'm really bad at chemistry, but I'm good at biology, and like it will balance out eventually.
Yeah.
The other thing is, it flags up issues that you've probably had lifelong and not realised. So I got all the way through to the Christmas before my finals and was diagnosed with dyspraxia. You know, had I known that when I was 11, I think the course of my learning through school would have been very different because the support would have been necessary to get me through and help out. The minute that the university sort of flagged up through the teaching style, so that's where it came up with. It was a very unique teacher, flagged up that I was dyspraxic. The minute that happened, certain things were put straight into place to ensure that I was supported as necessary to get through my exams. So that different teaching styles are thrown at you, so that things like that are flagged up. And it's amazing that when you can go, 14 years of education, and suddenly one different little tweak to your teaching style can flag up something as big as that.
Yeah. And sorry, I've forgotten the name of your colleague who was here yesterday. Emma said something similar, didn't she? In terms of learning one way for all of her career, and then going to university and something being picked up, which then was able to be addressed and to help us. Thank you for that, Dan. Okay, any other questions from the audience? Anything at all? This is your chance. You'll be on the bus tonight, you'll be thinking, that's what I wanted to ask. Now's your chance. Let's have a look at a couple of screen questions then. Who remembers number 3? Not me. This is quite an interesting one. This question 3 maybe, just around perceptions, because it's difficult, isn't it? As soon as you read about university, see a video, talk to other people, you start forming an idea. But as you said, Callum, unless you're there talking to students, then it's a very different picture. So just going to ask you, what sort of pictures did you have in your head, or what did you think it would be like, whether that's university generally or the specific university you went to?
I think it's played up as like one massive party, like you're always going to be going out, which to a certain extent, it can be that if you want it to be that. But I mean, you probably will fail. But apart from that, like I wasn't quite aware of like how many groups of people there are. Like you're never going to click with everyone there. I mean, there's going to be people you dislike, there's going to be people that you love. But for me, like I was a bit shocked at like how big it can actually be. It's like when you're in school, it's all quite tight-knit. Like you're a big fish in like a pond. When you go there, you're like really small actually when you think about it. There's so many different groups and cliques and societies and sports, and like I was a bit whoa for a second. That was me.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really have much of a perception of what university would be like before I went there. I sort of knew about King's academic reputation, but I didn't really know much about its reputation when it came to like being a student there and what the student body is like. So it took me like actually going there to know what that was. And I said this yesterday, like you don't actually know where you're going to study until like August before you go. So I had like 3 weeks after results day to adjust to the idea that I was moving to London. I mean, like, okay, now I have to cope with that and then try and cope with everything else that's going on. So it's kind of a cloudy time when you think back on it, because you weren't really thinking about anything other than, okay, I have to pack this, and I have to do this, and I have to do this. I have to make sure I know where I'm living, and all this kind of stuff. So I didn't really have room in my mind to think about that until I actually got there.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, to be honest, I figured it would be just a big party, like very big social life, and then lots and lots of work. And you kind of don't realise until you get there quite how different it is from that, how it's so much broader. There's so much more to do than you like first perceive. Just from what you hear from friends, most people will talk about the social life, or they did to me anyway. And as soon as I arrived, I realised the ridiculous number of sporting opportunities, like ranging just the number of sports that you can join, and you've never done them before in your life, and you can sign up and get to go and maybe do it at whatever level you want to, either competitively or just for some fun with some mates, like intramural, etc. And yeah, I think for me that was the biggest shock. I didn't realise quite how many more opportunities there were, and how life was so much richer than just party at night, working the day, etc.
Yeah.
There's just all sorts to do. too much. You want to do it all, and it's quite difficult.
Yeah, and you mentioned yesterday, didn't you? You'd visited your sister at Exeter University and just got one taste of the sort of social side of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Went to stay, went on a few nights out and stuff like that, and I kind of stay at home when she was off doing lectures, etc. And I didn't really, well, she was doing her sports clubs and stuff, so I didn't really see it all. So even if you visit a friend or something before you go, just because that's what their life is, doesn't mean it will be what your life will be, because you'll be what you make it, basically, what you choose to do. As long as you go out and make the effort and search and try new things, it will be the best experience.
Great. Jacob, I think, mentioned in a session this morning, 700 different societies at Cambridge University. Obviously, not going to try them all, as you said, but, it's about finding things, trying things, maybe not liking them, but out of it, maybe finding new friends that you wouldn't have come across otherwise. But, yeah, if there's not something that suits you, then start it. That's how that 700 has become 700, isn't it? Okay, let's have a look at, I think we've touched first week. What about first year? Looking back.
So after sort of getting over the initial shock of the first week, you sort of ease in, and your first year has it's a much more positive reflection of my first year than my first week. So for me at King's, my first year does count academically. A lot of universities don't count the first year, but King's does. So it was important for me to make sure that I nailed those first exams rather than, going on a sesh. So it was sort of difficult to sort of learn how to revise as well, because it was much different revising for exams at degree level than at A level. Everything I thought I knew about my own learning styles just went out the window. I had to start from scratch again. So when I think back of my first year, that's what I think of as relearning how I revise and trying to focus on doing well in my exams in my first year.
My first year, I failed, so I had to reset everything over the summer. But I think that's purely because I was that type of person who would just sack off lectures. I'd go out, and then I tried to make it back in the library at night, but then I'd get bored after 3 hours and just end up going home. So I had to work out what learning style worked for me. And I mean, I'm here now, in the second year, so clearly I've done something right. But it is about trying what's right for you. And you meet so many different people, and some could be really good influences for you, and some could be really bad influences for you. So it's trying to figure out what is right for you.
I think first year is a complete trial and error. I mean, at Exeter, your first year doesn't count, but I was so kind of on that hype of A-levels, and I was so scared about, university, that I worked ridiculously hard in first year. And also I was doing a subject I'd never done before, so I wanted to continue on and try and do the best I could in that, because I honestly felt like everyone knew more than me. And first year really is a trial and error. You're living on your own for your first time, and especially if you're living in halls or self-catered halls, which I was in, we had just, learning experiences. So how to turn the washing machine on, and how to not let it spin for hours without any clothes in, even though you've paid. I honestly gave those machines probably upwards of £10 without actually washing any clothes. We set toasters on fire by accident, and my 6'3" housemate just ran out the door screaming, and we were just all stood there well, what are we going to do? It was just ridiculous things like that, which sound really silly, but you kind of just all get through it together, and you've got to learn how to deal with these things, and that's on top of meeting new people, doing your course, and socialising. You've got a lot of things to contend with in your first year, but you will make it work, so I wouldn't worry too much. Does anyone else want to?
I was just going to quickly add, onto what you just said, I didn't even know how to turn on a bloody oven. I was looking at the dials, and I was like, oh my God, so I took a photo, and I had to send it to my mum, and she was like, oh yeah, you need to use this one. It sounds really stupid, but you take for granted what your parents do for you. And then when you actually go and you do it first time for yourself, you realise being an adult is actually quite, it's tricky, but you grow, if you get what I'm saying.
Just to add on to that, it's a similar experience. So for 2 weeks in halls, I couldn't use the hob because it was an electric hob and I'd never used one before. And I was just pressing it, nothing's happening. And I just said I didn't really get on with my flatmates. I was really terrified to ask, and I'd seen them use it, so I was okay, so it works. So it is me, it's not the hob. So I finally plucked up the courage after 2 weeks, asked my flatmate, how do you use the hob? And they were like, oh, you have to switch it on at the wall? And I was like, rookie error. Yeah, so it happens. Like, it's clearly a common experience. But that's the best part, I think, of the first year, is just learning how to cope by yourself.
Yeah, it creates the best memories. You just, number of loads I put on white washes with that one pair of pants or whatever in there, and you just comes out pink, and you're just like, oh, not again. But it's just all these things, they're just great memories when you think back about how much fun it was, just generally living with other people and just slowly trying to work out what on earth is going on and how you're getting onto it. And it definitely all comes together eventually.
You'll set off a fair few fire alarms.
Yeah.
No,
I had a
not
friend in the
good.
first day who tried to make spag bol. He took frozen mince, spaghetti, tin of tomatoes, whacked it in a bowl, stuck it in a microwave, and was most annoyed when he couldn't have a meal ready in 3 minutes. He was there with his grated cheese, like, yeah, any minute now. Yeah, I think he's still about the same in terms of cooking. Yeah. But yeah, it's learning so many different skills, isn't it? Living independently, making new friends, trying things out, learning or relearning or readjusting how to study, all of those things. Okay, let's have a look. So we talked a little about, the different patterns or the different sort of setups. Dan, you talked about the tutorial system in Oxford. You talked about seminar and group sizes varying from course to course or from uni to uni as well. Anything more you've got to add to that, or how would you say it's different from school? I know you've touched on it, some of that.
It's kind of like what Jacob said earlier about how you approach a subject. Like, at school, you're kind of given the answers and you have to memorize them, and that's how you pass your exams. But at university, you have to come up with the answers yourself, and you have to fight every corner, and you have to justify everything you say, and it can be really difficult sometimes as well, especially if you're looking at something which has been written about by like 1 million different people. So you have to try and incorporate all these different arguments, or if it's something that hasn't been written about by anyone, and you kind of have to scrape it all together.
Yeah, for me, it's also just the broad range of options you have in terms of academic course and stuff. First year maybe less so, but second year and third year especially, you get a huge range of modules you can choose from, either in or out of your subject. Kind of depends on what you're studying and where you're at, but on the whole, there are options available. And for that, I think that's one of my favourite parts, because A-level was so structured. It was all, your teacher says you're doing this, so you're doing this. But at uni, you just get to refine it exactly how you want, which means you get to choose everything you find interesting. And obviously, you're going to be stuck with a core module which you may not like, for instance, me and stats, stuff like that. You just have to do it, you get on with it. But yeah, the freedom in terms of academic choice and how you work, etc., is definitely a big change, which is so much better than before.
Great. Dan?
I think you just learn to be more tolerant. I mean, you can... So many things are passed off in school, and you see people between 9 and 3:30, and then you can close that door and say goodbye to them. I mean, especially in first year, that's not the case, and you just learn to be more tolerant to people and their interests and their attitudes, and you have massive arguments and you fall out and all the things that do happen. But that is the big sort of maturing process, is that you suddenly realise that we're all different, and that's really something to be celebrated and is absolutely fine, and it's all good, really.
Yeah. What you said, Chloe, about I think it was Chloe who said it, about being expected to, justify or argue or work things out or fight your corner, as you put it. That was echoed very strongly just before lunch when we had the admissions and the widening access panel. They were talking about the difference between applications from students who would come across as spoon-fed, so they're just used to being fed information, to the students who can, do it under their own steam, was the way they put it. So it's those of you who can show that before you're even at university, or show the promise of that, I think, is what a lot of universities are looking for. Any other questions from you? They can be about switching on cookers. They can be about anything at all. What would you like to ask? What did you actually think of the students' accommodation?
I had a house, but not everyone had a house. But there's some that are really nice and some that aren't so nice. But on the whole, I'd say most people have a good time in the accommodation, because with halls, you're normally with a lot of people, and if you don't get on with the people in your particular flat, there'll be the next door flat that you'll actually tend to go on with. And it's kind of like that with uni anyway. Like, I get on with my neighbours better than my actual housemates sometimes. Because we bicker and we're all really close, so I don't know, I like it.
I loved my halls. I'm a bit of a princess, and I got the halls I wanted, and they were really lovely. And I was also very lucky with everyone I lived with. We all really clicked. We all get on. I live with most of them still now. We're all really good friends. So it did work out really well. But then, yeah, other people don't, and other people have. And I have a wide group of friends outside my housemates. I'm just really lucky that I'm close with them as well.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, I didn't really get on with my flatmates, but I had friends who lived in a different block to me, and I would spend most of my time at their flat. So it didn't really bother me much. One piece of advice I would give, and I give this to like first year undergraduates, is don't think living with your best friend is a good idea, because it's usually the worst idea ever. Like, I've seen friendships fall apart with people who live together, because your best friend might be the greatest person ever, they might be hilarious, have always like great stories to tell, but they never do their dishes, and it drives you insane. Absolutely insane. And then it's just like, you know, I can't live with you anymore. So be wary of doing that. In terms of like your actual living space, I get a lot of questions because of like London is quite, like, it's always in the news for like all these horrific like landlords and like flats and stuff, but it's not as bad as people make it out to be. I mean, I did live in a broom cupboard pretty much for a long time, where it was literally like just this amount of space was my kitchen, and that was it. But that's to be expected when you go somewhere like London. Like, I have friends who would come, like a friend who was at Exeter who came to visit me, and he was like, so where's your living room? I was like, you don't get living rooms in London. You do not. Unless you literally are a multi-millionaire, you don't get a living room when you're in London.
I had a slightly different accommodation situation. So generally, the colleges at Oxford and Cambridge accommodate for 3 years and cater for you. It's more of a cost-saving measure than anything else. So you're only paying to live in Oxford or Cambridge for the time you're there. So rather than paying a whole year's rent, I paid at most 24 weeks of rent, and was only paying obviously for food while I was in Oxford. But that was all catered for at the cost of about £3 a meal, 3 times a day. So it takes off a huge pressure, because you haven't got to deal with, you've got very good accommodation as it is anyway, and the security that goes with that, and a structure that's designed to be there if any sort of financial worries or whatever means you can't pay your rent or whatever. The financial structures are there to support you. But, you know, it was good accommodation and pretty solid, stable, something you didn't have to worry about for 3 years.
Yeah, I was in an accommodation in Exeter, where people were actually sharing rooms. Obviously, not all of the accommodations like that. There's a couple. It was quite interesting as well to see, because at first I didn't actually share a room, but when I applied, I was at risk of, and I didn't know what to think of it, because obviously it's quite nice to have your own piece of space. But I did notice they put a system in place which meant that they'd try and pair up like-minded people, and it meant they had a cheaper room, and if they didn't like going out so much, they'd be put 2 people together who both didn't like going out, so you weren't being woken up at 3 in the morning or whatever, with someone stumbling in. And a lot of the people, obviously it didn't work for everyone, but a lot of the people made their best friends from that method, and the accommodation became cheaper for them for it, so it's something to consider. Yeah, I was quite lucky. I was in basically a big house with about 100 people. We had our own common room, TVs, pool tables, and ping pong and stuff, and it was just so much fun. If ever you were bored, you just wander downstairs and go play ping pong for half an hour or whatnot, which was definitely great. So just make sure, all I'd say to you is have a really good look on the websites for the universities that you apply for. They tend to have a lot of information about how much they cost, what you get, so en suites or single or double beds or sharing and whatnot. And also they tend to have lots of photos. So just have a really good look about, see what feels good for you, and then apply, and hopefully, fingers crossed, you'll get what you go for.
Yeah, I feel like it's really important, student accommodation, because it can really shape your university experience. So I spent the last 6 months living in a flat, which just really, it wasn't good for my mental health. It wasn't good for like my quality of life, and I ended up like getting out of my contract and leaving, because it was awful. So like really think about like what you're getting yourself into, and even if you don't like the look of student accommodation, there's also alternatives. You don't have to go into the university's provided student accommodation in your first year. You get like private student accommodation. There's different companies that run it. You can also enter into the student rental market at the first year. There's nothing stopping you. Or even if you're going to stay close to home. So a lot at King's, there's a lot of London-based students who just commute in as well. So there's lots of options.
Lots of options and lots of variety from one place to another, isn't it? So as part of, if you're going to open days, have a look at what's there. And yeah, make use of all the information, have a look at all the pictures. I remember it was very much a sort of picking out of a brochure when I was going to university. There was none of this online nonsense. Didn't exist. But it was just, what are the prices like, what do the pictures look like? And you end up, you make the most of where you are, and you look at some places and you think, well, that's nicer, or that's not as nice, but yeah.
I mean, photos can only do so much justice, and I don't know what,
True.
the process is in different universities, but especially with mine, everyone goes into their accommodation at the start, and some people love their accommodation, but some people really don't like it. But then people who, change, so the uni try to accommodate that if there's any spare rooms, in different accommodations. If their friends are there or whatever, for whatever reason, they try their best to try and put you in the good accommodation that you want.
Okay, I think we've got time for... Do you want to do any more on number 9, or would you say we've covered that? How much work do you have to do on the course? Sorry? 10, yeah, okay.
Do you know what? Just to spite you, I'm not going to mention it. So, like I said earlier, I'm the creative director of King's Ukulele Society, and I'm a bastion of this, and I tell everyone about it, and it's great. But it's because it's not just based around, it's called King's Ukulele Society, but let me tell you, the amount of times we actually play the ukulele is very small compared to all the other activities we do. So it's just, joining a society is such a good way of meeting new people, and because societies are open to everyone on campus, you start to meet people on different courses, people at a different stage in their education. I made a lot of friends who are actually PhD students as well, so you just get such a broad range of people, these new people to make friends with, and all these different opportunities open up to you. So the things that I've done with the Ukulele Society, we do a lot of charity work, so we do busking around London, but we also go on a tour every year. So we tour some places in the UK, so last year we went to Paris, the year before that we went to Dublin, and this year we're going to go to Belfast. So there's so many opportunities as well that come with societies to just get out there and experience the world as well. They're quite a good platform for that.
Fantastic.
Yeah, another unusual society. I'm the treasurer of the Sub-Aqua Society at Exeter. So we go diving and we teach people to dive. So we have a boat and we have all the equipment. And so I think it's really cool. It wasn't really something, I went on holiday basically and wanted to learn to dive, but it was really expensive. So I went back to uni and found the society and just walked up to them and said, right, I'm joining. And it was really great, and I've met loads of people who I just really wouldn't have otherwise met, and we've become really, really good friends. And it's just added another dimension to my university life. And then also being part of the kind of leadership team of the society this year has been really great. It's been taught me loads of skills. It's been great in interviews. It's just kind of, another thing that's added to my university experience.
I've had loads of talks about employability at university, and they always say, if you're involved with the society, put it on your CV, because it's such a good talking point for an employer to really, get to know you. So, at the bottom of my CV, I've just got creative director at King's Ukulele Society.
Mm. And as we said this morning as well, I think, what that membership's given you, as you've just described. There we have to leave it, I'm afraid. We've come to the end of the session. So if you'd just like to join me in thanking Dan, Chloe, Callum, Tom, and Lucy. Thank you very much. Take care. Cool.
See you for round 4.
Yes.